So let's start from the beginning, why I created this podcast. So last year, I created the Midweek Motivation brand, and it just started off with a newsletter. And at this time in my life, I moved away from Sydney to London, and I started my business, which is personal training, online coaching, but I didn't really have much else going on in my life. So my calendar was very empty, which is a very new thing. And so I wanted to start documenting some of the stories and continue to build upon this personal brand that I'm building. For the past few years, I've had this YouTube channel, I have my Instagram, but now it's time to go into writing. And I didn't want to just keep it health and fitness related, which is what most of my content is about. I wanted to go deeper into that, into mindset and how that works with everything that I do and how I can apply to anyone, regardless if you're in the health and fitness industry, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're writing your first blog or starting that YouTube channel, whatever it is, that is where you can find lessons and stories from basically, it's going to keep going until I decide to give up. But basically every single week, I send you a weekly newsletter, and it also contains some other cool stuff in there as well. So free workout of the week, I've got you some additional resources in there as well. But then after a couple months of writing, I thought, you know what? I really want to connect with other people. Rather than talk about myself all the time, I would love to have some guests on. So that's when I brought in my first guest, Rugari Gomo. And I realized from here, this stuff is so powerful, I wanted to share it. So we recorded it anyway, regardless of where it was going to go. But then I was like, let's make it a podcast. So we did that. And since then, I've had it as a hobby and just learning one episode at a time, how to shoot in a different format, how to set up the room in this in-person way, how to make it a bit more sort of chill and relax, which is kind of the vibe I'm going for this podcast, rather than some of the YouTube videos where a bit more scripted or trying to figure out different shots. So it's a completely different scene. With the podcast, what I wanted to do was I wanted to share the stories and lessons from people I find really inspiring and who have gone through the hard walks of life to achieve what they wanted to have today and how that's made their life more fulfilled. The podcast was also a way to be connected with people. As I move countries, and if you've ever experienced this, it doesn't have to be a country, but it could be a city, then you know that you lose some of that connection if you have friends and family who you've left behind and your community. So I wanted to have this way to still keep in touch with people, but then share what they've learned from their journey. So what is this podcast about? I think this podcast is going back to maybe who I was 5 years ago, 10, maybe perhaps 15 years ago, where there was a lot of opportunity, not really sure which path to go down, a little bit lost, and the traditional path seems a very easy way to go to that next stage. But again, even that was just too difficult to figure out. What kind of career I wanted, university, or subjects I wanted to study in school. Little did I know, a year from now, during school, what I wanted to do, or who I wanted to become. So this Midweek Motivation podcast and newsletter helps that person, that version of me back then. And I'm sure there's many of you who can relate. Perhaps, maybe you're not as young as me. Perhaps you're going through a career change, or you're having an existential crisis. Or that you feel like you've been left behind in life and you're not really sure how to just make yourself more fulfilled. And this is what this podcast is about. What it's not about is a quick success story. I don't want to share another really quick hack that someone has done to become rich or become famous, anything like that. It's not about that. It's about giving up security for fulfillment. It takes sacrifice. And I don't want to make it seem like that is one version of success. Success or fulfillment, everyone has a definition of what that is. And I don't want to seem like that, you have to do this, you have to give up your career, you have to go out there into the wilderness and, find your thing. Just a quick announcement before we return to the podcast. If you're enjoying this episode of Midweek Motivation, you may be interested in checking out the Midweek Motivation newsletter, where every week I'll share with you a useful lesson on resilience, mindset, or fitness, or health in general, straight to your inbox. You also receive a free workout of the week, useful resources, and the latest videos that I've got up there. And just if you want to keep updated on my life, you'll find everything there. If you're interested in that, go ahead and hit the link in the description below, or go to Substack and search up Midweek Motivation. All right, let's return to the podcast. Perhaps listening to this podcast, maybe you are that person who is looking for something else. So all it is just providing that little extra spark. If you're feeling something's missing in your life, then perhaps this could be that little dose of motivation. Why it's called Midweek Motivation? Well, no one seems to have motivation on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So that is why that is. Everyone has the highest dose of dopamine motivation on a Monday, on a start of the week, start of the year, start of the month, whatever it is. So having it, trying to have a bit more enjoyment, a bit more fulfillment, a bit more energy for the rest of your week. Doesn't, no matter where it is, if you're working in a grinding 9-to-5 job, you always have something to look forward to, perhaps in the evenings where you can work on yourself, whether it's just going to the gym, spending time with your family. Maybe it's working on that project for an hour that you said you would. And so these guests that I have on, they could be anyone. It doesn't have to be health fitness related, which is what the rest of my content is about. I love having conversations with people, especially intimate conversations. I'm an introvert, so even though that seems completely different, trying to go on camera, doing all these different things, but naturally, I'm an introvert, and I just learned extroverted skills to put myself out there. This stuff is not easy for me. And this podcasting is just a way just to record those meaningful conversations and then just share that with people who I generally think, who may need it. Maybe that one person that you're really stuck on, should I go and start a business? Should I buy a business, perhaps? Or maybe should I go and do that music gig? Whatever it is, I hope this is maybe a bit of backstory on maybe why you should do it, maybe why you shouldn't do it, perhaps. Now you know what it's like from someone who has done it, and maybe perhaps it's not for you. So now, where is this podcast going? This is the 10th episode, so it's not a lot, but you can probably already tell if you've been listening or watching that there's been some improvements over time. The in-person podcast, for example, or even if you've seen some of the promotion for the podcast. So if you didn't know, I've partnered with ETS Rabasha Media, and they have been awesome to work with so far. And they have been editing, they have done all the behind the scenes work, the promotion of the podcast. And then that way I can truly focus on the conversations with people and then still live the rest of my life without having to have a tight schedule on editing the podcast, which is not my strong suit. It's not my favorite, but it's awesome to have someone who can give me some guidance, who's had experience working with other people in their podcasts to grow this further and just continue to put these lessons and stories out there into the world. Because of that, I've put more investment into the podcast. Right now, we're going through a lot of a change. So the in-person stuff, this is brand new, but it's going to be a bit more change behind the scenes. For context, I've got some flatmates moving out and got some new ones coming in. So just playing around with the different environments and see what really works, what I can and can't do in the situation. I'm still going to include the virtual episodes because that way I can reach more people in terms of bringing guests on and having those conversations. That and still also need to play around in terms of the environment and the quality and the setup. But the goal was to try and have fortnightly episodes. And in terms of the guests, I would love your feedback on what we can do to have maybe the types of guests that you want to see, maybe the types of questions that you want to hear from these guests, maybe the creative outlook on the environments or the quality of the podcast. I'd really love you to send some feedback if it's on the YouTube comments or if it's a DM, anything like that is, if you've got experience in that area, I would love to hear from you. I am loving the in-person podcast setup at the moment because we invite the guests in and we have the emotions, the connection, it's just a greater energy, and to capture that on camera and trying to deliver that same connection and emotions to you guys, I think it's going to be really powerful for you guys to take away from this. And yeah, I would love to hear your feedback.